Before we begin today's narrative, I would appreciate it if you could share in the comments which video on this channel has resonated with you the most thus far. Your feedback is always valued. Growing up, Liam epitomized the role of the quintessential older brother, often annoying yet undeniably integral to my life. Our parents married when I was 10 and he was 12, merging our families into a somewhat chaotic but ultimately affectionate household. Sharing a room with him was merely one of the many adjustments I had to navigate. We engaged in the typical sibling dynamics, squabbling over bathroom time, competing for the last slice of pizza, and participating in endless rounds of teasing that often bordered on irritation. However, beneath this playful rivalry lay an unspoken bond, a connection strengthened by our shared experiences and the unique challenges of a blended family. This summer, however, marked a noticeable change. It began subtly while our parents were away on one of their annual trips to wine country, leaving Liam and me to manage things at home. We were accustomed to these periods of relative independence, but this time, the atmosphere felt charged with an inexplicable energy. Liam had matured in ways I had not fully recognized. He exuded a newfound confidence and an easy charm that was both disarming and captivating. It was not merely his physical transformation, though I could not overlook how his broad shoulders and tousled blonde hair had evolved him from a lanky teenager into a strikingly handsome young man. There was a depth in his gaze, a quiet intensity that made my heart race. Initially, I dismissed these feelings as a mere consequence of spending more time together, but as the summer progressed, the tension between us became increasingly palpable. One evening, as we lounged in the living room watching a movie, what would typically have been an opportunity for playful banter and sarcastic remarks transformed into a comfortable silence that spoke volumes. I noticed Liam watching me, his gaze lingering a moment too long, sending a shiver down my spine. I let out a nervous laugh, attempting to ease the tension, yet the sense that something had shifted between us lingered. Then he spoke, his voice low and uncertain. "Do you ever find it odd, us living together like this?" I froze, unsure of how to reply. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice revealing a trace of anxiety. He paused, a playful smirk forming on his lips. "I mean, we're not actually related," he stated, the obvious truth hanging in the air. "We're step-siblings, but there's no blood relation between us." His words lingered, heavy with unexpressed implications. It was a reality I had always known, yet hearing him articulate it stirred a peculiar mix of curiosity and unease within me. I shifted uncomfortably, trying to digest his statement, but before I could respond, Liam laughed, brushing off his own question. "Forget it," he said, his tone returning to its usual lightness. "Just thinking out loud." I nodded, relieved to let the topic fade, but his words resonated in my mind long after our conversation ended. The ensuing silence felt different now, charged with a newfound awareness that had not been present before that night. As I lay in bed, my thoughts raced. Why had his words impacted me so deeply? Why did the simple fact of our non-biological connection suddenly seem so important? The following morning, I hoped the awkwardness would have faded, but upon entering the kitchen and seeing Liam at the table, the familiar tension resurfaced. He looked up as I walked in, our eyes meeting for a brief moment that felt laden with unspoken significance. "Morning," I mumbled, moving toward the refrigerator. I occupied myself with preparing breakfast, hoping the routine would alleviate the awkwardness. "Morning," he replied. His tone was relaxed, yet I sensed his gaze upon me, sending a shiver down my spine. The day unfolded in a blur of unexpressed tension. We steered clear of unnecessary dialogue, yet the atmosphere was charged with an energy that could not be overlooked. It felt as though we were tiptoeing around a delicate truth, hesitant to confront it while simultaneously unable to look away. By evening, I found myself utterly drained, overwhelmed by the emotional upheaval. I sank onto the sofa, unable to sustain the facade any longer. Something had undeniably shifted between us, and I could no longer dismiss it. That night, a question reverberated in my mind. Why does everything feel so altered? I remained awake, hoping Liam would retire first, but as fate would have it, he seemed to have the same intention. Around midnight, I heard his footsteps softly approaching down the hallway. He entered the living room and settled onto the sofa beside me, the cushions sinking under his weight. His presence felt unusually close, the air thick with unexpressed tension. "Can't sleep?" he inquired, his tone casual, yet his eyes sparkled with something deeper. I shrugged, pretending to be indifferent. "Just not tired, I guess," I replied, my gaze fixed on the television, though I could not recall what was playing. The ensuing silence was heavy, charged with an energy that made my skin tingle. I was acutely aware of his nearness, the warmth emanating from him, and every subtle movement captured my attention. For reasons I could not articulate, it ignited a peculiar excitement within me. The quiet grew more intense, akin to the calm before a storm, as my thoughts raced to comprehend the emotions swirling within me and the undeniable attraction I felt towards my stepbrother. Liam's voice shattered the silence, low and measured. "I wasn't joking the other day." His words struck me like a surge of electricity, my heart racing into my throat. "What?" I managed to ask, my voice scarcely above a whisper. "I meant what I said," he continued, his gaze steady. "About us, about this." He gestured vaguely between us, capturing the unexpressed tension that enveloped the room. "We're not truly related. We've lived together for years, shared our lives and secrets. Don't you feel it too?" His words lingered in the air, heavy with unacknowledged desire. My pulse quickened, and my thoughts spiraled. Every logical instinct urged me to reject it, to dismiss him, to flee. Yet, I remained frozen, entranced by his gaze, the truth of his words resonating within me. "I know you feel it too," he whispered, his voice barely above a murmur, yet it struck a deep chord within my soul. The sincerity in his tone startled me, not because I disagreed, but because I did not. The realization sent a shiver down my spine, a blend of fear and exhilaration. "No one would ever know," he added, his voice a seductive whisper, his eyes searching mine, imploring me for a reaction. Overwhelmed by the weight of his words, I stepped back, my heart racing. "This is wrong, Liam." "We can't," I asserted, my voice trembling yet resolute. He rose as well, his expression inscrutable, but his eyes revealed a vulnerability I had never witnessed before. "Why not?" he asked, frustration and longing lacing his voice. "No one would ever find out." I shook my head, my determination solidifying. "It doesn't matter. We're family, Liam. Step-siblings or not, it's wrong. We can't cross that line." He fell silent for a moment, his gaze probing mine, a storm of emotions swirling within. Then, with a resigned sigh, he stepped back. "Okay," he said, his voice tinged with defeat, yet an undercurrent of defiance suggested that this was not the end. The days that followed were torturous, the unspoken tension between us palpable, casting a shadow over every interaction. I did my best to avoid him. I sought solace in my room, often inventing reasons to avoid leaving the house. Yet, no amount of physical distance could diminish the inner chaos I experienced. The memory of our conversation lingered, replaying in my mind with an unyielding clarity. I chastised myself for allowing the notion of a relationship with Liam to take hold, for the brief spark of excitement his words had ignited. Our parents were expected to return soon, and I clung to the hope that their presence would restore some sense of normalcy. However, deep down, I recognized that the delicate equilibrium between Liam and me had been irrevocably altered. One night, as I lay in bed enveloped by silence, a gentle knock on my door startled me. My heart raced, and my breath caught in my throat. "Carla," Liam's voice came as a soft whisper. I froze, torn between the desire to ignore him and the overpowering curiosity that gnawed at me. Slowly, I sat up, my voice barely above a whisper. "Yes?" "Can I come in?" he asked. The tension that had been building between us was on the verge of erupting, and I was uncertain if either of us was ready for the aftermath. The gentle knock on my door had startled me, and my heart raced as I hesitated, my hand hovering over the doorknob. Finally, I opened the door to find Liam standing there, his usual carefree demeanor replaced by a hesitant uncertainty. "Carla," he began, his voice low and filled with regret. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry for what happened the other night. I shouldn't have crossed that line." His apology should have brought me relief, a sense of closure, but it did not. The tension between us remained a tangible force, filling the space around us. "We can't go there again, Liam," I stated firmly, meeting his gaze. "We're family. We can't." He nodded, running a hand through his tousled hair, his expression a blend of frustration and resignation. "I know," he replied, his voice heavy with emotion, "but I can't just turn off my feelings." His words resonated within me, mirroring the turmoil in my own heart. There were no straightforward answers, no simple solutions to the complex situation we found ourselves in. We stood in silence for a moment, each lost in our thoughts. The weight of unexpressed emotions bore down on us. The following morning, Liam quietly revealed his intention to take a break, suggesting that perhaps some distance would be beneficial for both of us. There was a trace of sadness in his voice as he spoke, indicating that we needed time to sort through our feelings. I recognized the validity of his words. The tension that enveloped us had become unbearable, and separation seemed to be the only path toward clarity. However, the prospect of his departure left me with an unsettling sense of emptiness. "Carla, no one needs to know," he murmured, his voice barely audible. Those were his final words before he exited, the sound of the door closing resonating through the vacant house like a poignant farewell. A fundamental shift had occurred between us, something irrevocable. A line had been drawn, a boundary set. Yet, this newfound clarity came at a price, accompanied by the bittersweet ache of what might have been. In the days that followed Liam's departure, the house felt eerily quiet. The tension that had once filled every corner dissipated, replaced by an unsettling stillness. I should have felt a sense of relief, and to some extent, I did, but his absence created a void, a persistent ache that I struggled to articulate. I threw myself into my studies, seeking distraction from the emotional chaos that lingered. Hours were consumed with textbooks and notes, yet even the rigors of academia could not fully erase the memories of Liam, his words, his gaze, his very presence. The bond we had once shared, rooted in sibling friendship, had evolved into something deeper and more intricate. With the distance between us, I could finally confront the truth of my feelings, liberated from the constant pressure of his presence. This realization was both confusing and liberating, yet undeniably heartbreaking. As weeks turned into months, I adapted to a new routine. The return of our parents brought a semblance of normalcy back to our home, restoring the familiar rhythm of family life that filled the void left by Liam's absence. Nevertheless, in quiet moments, when the house was still and the outside world faded away, my thoughts would inevitably return to him. One evening, as I sat at my desk, struggling to concentrate. Grappling with an assignment, I heard a voice in the hallway that I recognized, Liam's voice. My heart raced, overwhelmed by a surge of emotions, excitement, anxiety, and a touch of apprehension. I paused, questioning whether I had imagined it, but then I heard it again, unmistakably. "Carla," he called, his tone soft and uncertain. Taking a deep breath, I rose from my chair and approached the door. Upon opening it, I found him standing there, illuminated by the gentle light of the hallway. He appeared different, more relaxed and at ease, yet the familiar warmth in his eyes remained unchanged. "Hey," I greeted, striving to sound casual despite my heart's rapid rhythm. "How was your trip?" "It was good," he responded, a genuine smile spreading across his face, a smile that sent butterflies fluttering in my stomach. Despite my attempts to appear indifferent, we lingered in that moment, the weight of our shared past and the uncertainty of our future palpable in the air. "I need some time to clear my head," Liam said softly, breaking the silence that enveloped us. The atmosphere was thick with unspoken words and lingering feelings. It felt as though a distance had emerged between us, yet there was also a shared understanding, a mutual recognition that we were prepared to confront whatever lay ahead. Liam's expression softened, and a tentative smile graced his lips. "I've missed you," he confessed, his voice revealing a vulnerability I had seldom heard. "Can we talk?" His simple request felt like a lifeline, an opportunity to bridge the gap that had developed between us, a chance to rebuild the connection we once had and to navigate the complexities of our relationship. I nodded, stepping aside to allow him entry. "Of course," I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. Liam took a seat on the edge of my bed, his posture tentative, while I settled on the floor facing him. The air was charged with anticipation, a blend of apprehension and hope. "I've had a lot of time to think, Carla." He initially directed his gaze toward the floor, contemplating the appropriate words to express. "I wish for our interactions to remain comfortable. I simply desire for us to return to the friendship we once enjoyed, devoid of any tension." A wave of relief washed over me, akin to a tidal surge, as I felt an unexpected burden lift from my shoulders, one I had not realized I was bearing. "I would like that as well, Liam," I responded softly, my voice imbued with sincerity. "I believe we can discover a path back to normalcy, to simply being ourselves." He raised his gaze, and for the first time since his return, I detected a flicker of hope in his eyes. "That's good," he replied, his tone warm and reassuring. "I cherish our friendship, Carla. I do not wish to lose it." "Neither do I," I confessed, my heart feeling considerably lighter. "We have endured so much together, it would be unfortunate to allow this to jeopardize everything." "Precisely," he affirmed, his shoulders relaxing as the tension in the room began to dissipate. "What would you like to do?" I inquired, eager to revive the camaraderie we once enjoyed. A playful smile spread across his face. "How about a movie marathon, just like the old days?" "That sounds perfect," I replied with a smile, then, with a teasing sparkle in my eyes, I added, "as long as it's not a cheesy romantic comedy." He laughed, the sound genuine and carefree, filling the room with a comforting warmth. "What about an action-packed thriller instead?" he proposed, and we seamlessly transitioned into a lively discussion about our favorite films. As the evening unfolded, the initial awkwardness faded, replaced by the familiar rhythm of our banter and laughter. We playfully teased one another, reminisced about shared experiences, and even engaged in lighthearted debates over the merits of various superheroes. It felt wonderful to be in his company again, to reclaim the effortless connection we had once enjoyed. In the days that followed, our friendship flourished anew. We spent countless hours playing video games, sharing music, and collaborating on school projects. It was invigorating to rediscover the joy of our bond, free from the underlying tension that had previously overshadowed us. Yet, there were fleeting but unmistakable moments when I would catch Liam's gaze lingering on me. At times, I would catch Liam's gaze resting on me for a moment longer than necessary, or a casual touch would send a shiver down my spine. In those instances, the memory of what nearly transpired between us would resurface, a haunting reminder of what might have been. Each time, I would push those thoughts aside, reminding myself of our commitment to friendship. However, despite my efforts, those lingering glances and accidental touches served as subtle reminders that, although we had chosen to move forward as friends, the past continued to cast a shadow over our present. I endeavored to dismiss those moments of tension, reinforcing the notion that Liam and I had made the right decision to pursue a platonic relationship. Yet, there were occasions when the past would resurface, whispering doubts and tempting me with forbidden possibilities. One afternoon, while perusing a magazine, I noticed a leather-bound journal lying open on the coffee table. My curiosity piqued. I picked it up and began to flip through the pages, which were filled with Liam's elegant handwriting, not in words, but in intricate sketches. Each drawing was a masterpiece, capturing the essence of its subject with remarkable detail and emotion. "These are incredible, Liam," I remarked, looking up at him, surprised to find him sprawled on the sofa, engrossed in a novel. He looked up, startled, a faint blush creeping onto his cheeks. "Oh, those are nothing," he mumbled, reaching for the journal. "Just some doodles." I playfully pulled it away. "Don't be so modest, these are amazing. You're really talented." He shrugged, a shy smile gracing his lips. "Thanks, Carla. It's just a hobby." As the months went by, our friendship deepened. We became each other's confidants, sharing our hopes, dreams, and vulnerabilities. He was always there to lend a listening ear, offer encouragement, and make me laugh. The complexities of our past faded into the background, replaced by a bond that felt both genuine and unbreakable. At times, recollections of those intense moments would emerge like phantoms from a distant dream, yet I would set them aside, concentrating on the present and the wonderful friendship we had nurtured. Looking at Liam, I perceived him as more than merely a stepbrother. He was my friend, my confidant, someone who had witnessed my highs and lows and had consistently stood by me. There was a reassuring quality to our bond, a sense of belonging that I had never encountered before. However, beneath this comfort lay an undercurrent of something deeper, a persistent tension that I found difficult to overlook. As summer approached, it promised long, carefree days filled with sunshine and laughter, and the anticipation of freedom and adventure filled me with exhilaration. Yet, beneath this excitement, a sense of uncertainty lingered. I could not shake the feeling that our relationship was nearing a pivotal moment. One sunny afternoon, we chose to spend the day at the beach. The sun sparkled on the turquoise waters, casting a golden hue on the white sands. We discovered a secluded area and spread out a blanket beneath the shade of a palm tree. Liam took out his sketchbook, his brow knitted in concentration as he began to draw. I observed him, captivated by the fluidity with which his hand glided across the page, capturing the beauty of the scene with effortless elegance. "What are you thinking about?" I inquired, curious about the inspiration behind his artwork. "Just trying to capture the moment," he replied, his voice soft and focused. "It's so peaceful here, I want to remember it." "Don't forget to include me in your masterpiece," I teased, though my words carried a hint of yearning. I desired to be more than just a subject in his art. I longed to be an integral part of his world, a significant presence in his life. He raised his gaze, a playful smirk gracing his lips. "You are the muse, Carla," he remarked, his eyes locking onto mine. "You might just inspire my greatest work yet." His words sent a shiver down my spine, the familiar tension resurfacing. I quickly averted my eyes, laughing nervously. However, as the afternoon progressed, filled with light-hearted conversation and shared laughter, I sensed a spark of something deeper. It was evident in the warmth of his gaze, the gentle brush of his hand, and the way his voice softened when he uttered my name. I attempted to dismiss these feelings, convincing myself they were mere figments of my imagination, yet a part of me wondered if he felt it too. The forbidden attraction that had once threatened to engulf us seemed to be rekindling beneath the surface of our newfound friendship. We laughed together, the sound light and carefree, providing a welcome respite from the weight of our shared past. It felt refreshing to return to this comfortable rhythm, simply enjoying each other's presence without the underlying tension. Yet, as Liam resumed his sketching, my thoughts wandered back to our earlier conversation, a flicker of longing igniting within me. We had agreed to remain friends and leave the past behind, but as I observed him, I couldn't help but question whether we had made the right choice. I tried to dismiss the thought, focusing instead on the gentle breeze rustling through the palm trees and the rhythmic crashing of waves against the shore, but the question lingered, a persistent whisper in my mind. What if we had been courageous enough to explore those feelings? What if we had chosen a different path? Liam, I began, my voice tentative, may I ask you something? He looked up from his sketchbook, curiosity evident in his expression. Of course, Carla. What's on your mind? I hesitated, my heart racing in my chest, and finally, the words spilled out before I could restrain them. Do you ever wonder what might have happened if we hadn't decided to just be friends? If we had explored those feelings? His hand halted mid-motion, the pencil suspended above the page. He gradually set it down, his playful demeanor giving way to a contemplative intensity that caused my breath to catch. Honestly, he began, his voice low and earnest, yes, I do sometimes wonder if we were simply afraid of what might occur if we allowed ourselves to be vulnerable. His confession washed over me like a tidal wave, dismantling the carefully erected barriers I had constructed around my emotions. Hearing him articulate it made it impossible to disregard the truth of my own feelings. Do you think it would have been worth it? I inquired, my voice barely above a whisper. The question lingered heavily in the air between us, charged with unexpressed longing. Liam's gaze shifted toward the horizon, his brow knitted in contemplation, the sunlight catching his golden hair and accentuating the sharp contours of his face. I believe it could have been, he finally replied, his tone measured. But we made a choice, Carla, and I respect that. We are better off as friends now. Right, I echoed, though the word felt hollow, lacking conviction. A knot of uncertainty tightened in my chest, even as I attempted to reassure myself that we had made the correct decision. We spent the remainder of the afternoon as if nothing had altered, laughing, joking, and sharing stories. Yet beneath the surface, the weight of our earlier conversation lingered. Every glance, every shared smile felt imbued with unspoken significance. As the sun began to set, casting vibrant hues of orange and purple across the sky, we gathered our belongings and commenced the walk home. The silence between us was comfortable yet charged with a tension that quickened my heartbeat. Each stolen glance and accidental touch felt laden with unexpressed desire. That night, I lay awake, replaying Liam's words in my mind, the way he had looked at me, the sincerity in his voice, the flicker of longing in his eyes, all of it stirred the turmoil within me. I yearned to confront him, to inquire about his true feelings, but fear restrained me. I was terrified of disrupting the fragile peace we had established. A few days later, our parents announced a surprise. We are organizing a family trip to Hawaii next month, my mother announced, her voice filled with enthusiasm. The idea of a change in environment stirred a blend of excitement and anxiety within me. Perhaps this journey would offer the clarity we sought, an opportunity to step away from the complexities of our relationship and rediscover the simple pleasures of companionship. However, a part of me questioned whether the close quarters and shared experiences would only heighten the forbidden attraction that lingered just beneath the surface. As I caught Liam's gaze across the breakfast table, I noticed a spark of curiosity reflected in his eyes, echoing my own uncertainty. This trip could either serve as the catalyst that united us or drive us further apart. One thing was clear, the narrative of Liam and me was far from concluded. We sat in a comfortable silence, the flickering firelight illuminating our faces, while unspoken feelings hung heavily in the atmosphere. I took Liam's hand, a smile spreading across my features. "All right," I said, my tone steady and determined, "let's see where this leads us." His responding smile, a blend of relief and happiness, warmed me deeply. In that instant, we crossed a threshold, stepping into uncharted territory with a mix of eagerness and apprehension. The rhythmic sound of waves crashing against the shore seemed to resonate with the beating of our hearts, creating a symphony of hope and anticipation. The remaining days of our vacation unfolded like a beautiful dream. The tension that had once burdened us dissipated, replaced by a newfound sense of joy and lightness. We walked hand in hand along the beach, laughing at the playful dolphins and collecting seashells that sparkled like gems in the sunlight. Our nights were spent beneath a blanket of stars, sharing our stories, dreams, and fears. Each conversation deepened our connection, solidifying the bond between us. An evening had unfolded between us as the sun descended beyond the horizon, casting a stunning palette of colors across the sky. We found ourselves on a tranquil stretch of beach, where the gentle waves caressed our feet and the salty breeze enveloped us in a sense of calm and serenity. Carla, Liam began, his tone earnest and sincere. No matter what happens, I want you to understand that our friendship means everything to me. I would never do anything to jeopardize that. His words resonated deeply within me, filling me with a warmth that radiated throughout my being. I feel the same way, Liam, I responded, locking eyes with him. I want to explore this, but let us proceed slowly, one step at a time. A broad smile illuminated his face, his eyes sparkling with joy. That's a deal, he replied softly. We will cherish the journey together. Our final night at the beach house was tinged with bittersweet emotions. Liam and I constructed a small bonfire on the sand, the flames casting playful shadows against the backdrop of the moonlit ocean. We roasted marshmallows, their gooey sweetness contrasting delightfully with the salty air. Laughter and quiet conversations intertwined with the rhythmic sound of the waves, creating a symphony of memories that would remain etched in our hearts forever. Do you remember when we first arrived here? Liam inquired, his voice laced with nostalgia. Everything felt so different back then. I smiled, my heart swelling with affection. Yes, but I believe it's even better now. We have come so far. He leaned in closer, the firelight illuminating his handsome features. I am grateful for every moment. He whispered, You mean the world to me, Carla, and his words lingered in the air, heavy with emotion. My breath caught in my throat as I responded, You mean a lot to me too, Liam. I never thought we would discover this kind of connection. He gently took my hand, his fingers intertwining with mine. Let us promise to always be open and honest with each other, he said earnestly. No matter what happens. I promise, I replied, my heart racing with a blend of excitement and apprehension. I want this to work, Liam. The fire crackled, and the stars twinkled above us, creating a moment that felt perfect. As summer transitioned into autumn, we resumed our daily lives, yet the transformation in our relationship endured. The tentative bond we once shared had blossomed into something profound and extraordinary. Weeks later, we found ourselves back at the beach, walking along the familiar shoreline as the sun set, casting a golden glow over the sand and water. Liam turned to me, a playful glint in his eyes. You know, he said, his tone light, you're my greatest inspiration. I laughed, warmth spreading through me. And you, I replied, are the artist who brings color to my world. As we strolled hand in hand, the waves gently lapping at our feet, I realized our story was just beginning. We had embarked on a journey filled with uncertainty, yet also with the promise of love, laughter, and a connection that defied all expectations. What are your thoughts on Carla and Liam's story? Have you ever experienced a relationship that challenged societal norms? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and remember to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that delve into the complexities of human connection.